and welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Matthias.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I are aspiring writers, which means that I never come up with exactly what to say in the intro here before I say it.
Yeah, but the benefit of this is that I know what to say after, which is, so we're doing a challenge. Each week, we set a timer for 30 minutes. Our goal is to use 3 of 4 randomly generated words to write a complete short story.
Then we come on the podcast, we read the stories out, we talk about what we learned in writing them, and then we talk about stories sent in by you listeners.
Hey, we're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A Doof Media production. This is the most sophisticated podcast on the Doof Network, the most put together, the most, unfortunately the most scripted. I'm actually reading from a teleprompter right now, which is why it sounds so natural.
Yeah, exactly. Also, we have been proven to get sick the most.
That's right. We are, usually we just record straight out the hospital because, why leave,
Yeah, because we're there like every other week, so.
And the sterile floors provide some good soundproofing. No
echo whatsoever, yeah.
To propagate the noise. So, Jarvis, you're sick as a dog, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sick as 2 dogs.
Wow.
Maybe 6 even. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel it's nothing terribly serious. It's just, I have that nice little, sickly fog over a lot of my thoughts and, actions. Which, just made having to turn in 3 entire essays this week and doing a whole bunch of other stuff that much more difficult. But either way, I'm here. I made it to the end of this week, and I'm happy for that.
I definitely get that. College right now is hell. It's a real rough time.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest. But that's fine. Hey. You should view it this way. I'm going through it right now. I'm gonna be honest. I'm going through it right now.
Yeah.
But I'm still doing the right thing. I'm still doing the right thing every week. And yes, it's mostly because I have an obligation to do a podcast every week. Yeah. I've made a promise. I know at least 50 of you will be mildly disappointed not to see it in your feed. And so I gotta.
Yeah.
But I'm still doing it, and that means that you know what? You can too. You can do the right thing, even if you're going through it.
Exactly, because above all that, doing the right thing is a great time. It's fun, and
it's pretty good.
Provides you with the perfect break from the day to day. I know some of my favorite moments over this last week when I wasn't doing this or that. Was the very few times that I actually had time to sit down and do the right thing. Now, it's not good, right? Not by any means. It's super, super rough. But I enjoyed writing it, and I think there are enough ideas in there to talk about mildly. So, with all that being said, even if you're sick, even if you're missing a limb, you can still do the right thing.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what? I'm gonna be honest, Jarvis. Can I tell you a little secret?
Yeah.
Can I tell you a little secret, Jarvis?
Yeah. What is it?
I think I wrote a pretty good story.
Oh, what?
Now that wasn't a subversion on the little secret thing. That was just me telling something. I think I wrote a pretty good story. But before we get into that, how about we reveal this week's words?
The words for this week are Aquatic, Inquisitive, Robin, and Trap.
Yeah. So what did you use this week, Jarvis?
I used all of them besides Robin because I didn't know where to put the word Robin in without making it either the bird or the very popular burger franchise.
What?
Red Robin.
The very popular what?
Burger franchise.
Oh, what burger franchise?
Red Robin. Have you never heard of Red Robin?
Okay. Honestly, I think I have, but I've never in my entire life seen one in the wild.
Really? If you go, you should order their water because nothing else there is really good.
Okay, good to know. I'm sorry if the CEO of Red Robin is listening. Hey, yeah. We just said that. We just phrased it that way. We really apologize, but we just phrased it that way because we're not getting any sponsorship money.
Yeah.
And we just don't feel comfortable giving an endorsement to a company that has not paid. I feel that would devalue our response. So if you would like us to hear something, if you would like us to say something good about your franchise, whether you're Red Robin or another, please email us at rightthingcast@gmail.com and just like include a couple of coins in that email.
Yeah.
Lick that envelope and then send it our way, and just include those bitcoins, and we'll start saying good things about you. So
exactly, but the only thing is that we will only take monetary compensation in the form of pounds and pence.
That's right, and that's pre-standardization, of course.
Yeah.
So used all but Robin.
Yes.
I used all but Aquatic.
All right.
And I went for a storytelling field, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Before we get into your story, I just want to tease. I want to tease y'all listeners, as I'm whispering in your ear. I want to tease y'all that there's I mean, you guys already know this, but all Packed Up is next week, and so I'm really excited to announce the rules for how we'll be doing that. It's gonna be really, really fun and really cool. So just stick around to the end to hear that. So other than that, is there anything we need to know before we kick on the drive to your story? Before we kick it on.
Kick it on. Well, I think the only thing that you might need to know is that this is a sequel to another Do the Right Thing story that I wrote named Mr. Jack. And it was the one that involved the person who was on the side of the road. He was on this drug named Hydrostank, I think.
Hydrospank. I did not love it. I'm gonna be honest.
And he killed the cop, talked to his partner Spine, who's this like skull guy thing. And then
it's like his skull familiar boy.
Yeah, pretty much. And then he shot this woman that was running from a hospital, and they took her. So that's where
it was just for listeners that didn't hear, it was a super powered. It was she's like 11. Like from Stranger Things. Yeah. She's like the superpowered girl. She's running away from the superpowered thing. She's carrying superpowered marbles with her. And Jack got her.
Yeah. Bang, bang, bang. And I feel that, it didn't turn out as perfect as I wanted it to, but at the same time...
Well, I really like that story, so I'm excited to hear the sequel.
Oh, yeah. And sequel you shall hear. In 3, 4, 5, 1. Mr. Jack. Spine's slumber. Spine was fast asleep, or at rest. Things of its kind can't really turn off, lest they become a hole between where it's from to where it is. After all the commotion of finding Abby, Jack drove them down across multiple state lines only to run out of gas somewhere around Texarkana. No more than a 50 to their name and a half-dead girl tossed in the trunk, their only option was to duck in to a gassy Motel 6 and wait it out till they came up with something. That's when Spine took his rest, to add the finishing touches to this great plan that saved Abby's life and probably ruined Jack's. He took the lazy boy. Jack and Abby, still not all there, took the bed closest to the door, decided to leave the other one to the bedbugs. Spine's cloak was draped over the arms of the chair, down to the floor and engulfed the far right quarter of the room. Black, smoky tendrils crept up from under the edges of the cloak and from the hairline fractures in his skull. Similar to vapor, the black streaks make their way up to the ceiling, turning its dingy beige into a slick, tangible black not unlike crude oil. The smoke congealed above Spine. In its ripples, you could see Spine's dreams play out at double speed and contorted to the point of its being an inconceivable mess of bright darkness and dim aurora. Interesting to watch. Yet, Jack found it nauseating. Not only was he photosensitive, but he was also a little standoffish towards Spine's weirdness. Yet, practically since birth, Jack's had to watch over Spine as he slept, not only to keep him safe, but more importantly, to wake him up if he ever starts to slip. Jack was hard on the come down, got off the electric highway a few hours ago, so the world lost its taste. The last couple of miles down the road was a dark tunnel of back and lung pain. So many shots taken with a stiff wrist damn near broke it. All he could manage for the time being was subtle movements of his middle and ring finger. His brain was swimming, deep, in an acid fog like some aquatic mud bug that's really been through some shit, only to be picked up by some backwards bayou good old boy and get sizzled up with a side of muskrat. Compared to other come-downs, though, it couldn't hold a candle in Jack's mind. Yes, everything was a little shifty, everything was hazy. But watching Spine do his thing was grounding for Jack, like your morning cup and that first kiss of sun. Just feeling him there, skulking and silent like a Machiavellian Inquisitor, brought the taste back to Jack's cig. If only Abby could shut up, was running round in Jack's mind. The yammering in question was more the occasional murmur followed by a deep breath or two. Abby was also on the come-down, but a more positive one. All the abilities the drugs gave her at first had faded away to let her body rebuild. But when they come back, well, there's no way to really tell what her limit would be. Up until this point, there wasn't a single overdose on the drug. It being monitored closer than precedent. A little bit through the light show, and the morning sun finally gave Abby's body a jump. Her overdose on those pills did a lot more good than bad. Beyond the splitting headache, her bullet holes closed up, didn't even leave scar tissue. When her eyes opened to see the man who shot her smoking a cig while absent-mindedly watching a demon in a dark corner, she screamed. Screamed a lot. This drew Jack's attention, but not enough to really move him. Tucked away in his jacket, Jack moved a gun slightly in view. "Can you keep it down?" Jack pulled from a cig and half slumped over with it. "I'm not feeling too good." Abby went silent. Her ears still rang from the last shot. The slight calm, or total fear, let feeling come back. Along with that, the feeling of a metallic chill digging into her wrist. "Why am I cuffed?" she asked as calmly as possible, practicing caution around the man who killed her. "Because not only have you shown suicidal tendencies, but I'm not up for a chase if you make a run for it." "I won't run. You won't run. All this freaky shit happening, and you're not gonna run off as soon as you can? Gotta try harder, Abby." Jack took another drag, but reeled back. He'd gone down past the filter and down the gold band, halfway down the cigarette butt. Jack looked at Abby. She was reeling back also, grabbing her head in a vice grip tight enough to bend wood. All but one tear was fought back. Jack knew it was bad, felt kind of guilty. Guilty in a sorry I didn't kill you kind of way. He remembered those come-downs, like it was yesterday. How it wrapped everything in a thin film of oddity and set every sensor on fire. Jack nudged Abby with his shoulder. "Watch this," and flicked the butt at Spy. By its trajectory, it was on mark, and would nail him right in the skull. But as soon as it passed the outer reaches of the tendrils, it burned to ash in a blink of an eye. God, gets me every time. Jack turned back to Abby. Through loose fingers she saw it, then saw Jack and a smile, equal parts sweet and juvenalian. She smiles back. Somehow they found conversation, still in the oddest part of the getting to know you phase, but something about the other kept them in, kept the innocent demon in the corner out of mind. As their conversation progressed, they were unaware of the space Spine's dreams had purchased. The cloudy haze that was first solely above Spine had covered the entire ceiling, found its way into open vents and half-clogged drains. Some even made their way outside only to dissipate into the sun, for it had nothing to cling to. The oil slick stuck to the ceiling in thick sheets. It gained weight. The haze's constitution fully realized in the physical world as a plasma goop that dropped down from the ceiling in bubbles and droplets sporadic around the motel. Not too far from Jack and Abby, a droplet hit the floor. No sound to a terrifying sizzle, the black plasma meshed and morphed around on the floor, creating apparatus for movement and sensory, only to have it fall to pieces as soon as it's constructed. Jack leapt from the bed to stomp the bugger out, but then Spine's chit of his teeth stopped him. Lets him fully realize we can bargain with words, not boots. Jack stepped down and watched as a ball of goop sprouted 1, 2, 7, 12, 20 eyes and sputtered round the floor. Its skin rippled between scales and high, flopped around like some aquatic fish out of water. After the thing calmed down, Spine went to it, held out a hand. Weenie eyes in high places. 1 here, 2 there. 1 then, 2 later. In turn, you may remain physical and experience sentience for a time. The thing purred and shuffled under Spine's cloak. In the center of his skull, perfect between horns and nose, a deep slit emerged and parted to reveal an eye. It was inverted, black void around white pupil. Spine looked toward the dream cloud, and, as if having full command of it, reached out a hand and slowed down its revolution. In the ripples, the night they met Abby played out, how she fell for their trap, all the way up until Jack popped her thrice and sent her to the dirt.
Fantastic story, Jarvis. I really enjoyed this. There's not like a lot that like specifically the plot doesn't progress that much, but you have some really cool imagery in here, and I think it's a really good addition to the story.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I know when I was first trying to like come up with it, one thing that I did know is that this scene that I want to write, not a whole lot is happening. And I know at first I wanted it to be mostly focused on dialogue between Abby and Jack, but I don't know, I just couldn't really come up with in the moment exactly what they would say to each other. I think that just kind of goes back to what I see the whole purpose of this larger story being, and exactly how I want them to interact going forward. But as is, yeah, I spent the most time on describing Spine and like what he's doing and what's happening. So
yeah, that part at the end after the thing drops from the ceiling and grows the eyes and what's the verb you used for how it moves?
Sputters?
I think so. It goes to Spine and purrs and shifts under Spine's cloak, and it was very evocative. I mean, I could picture it. I'm picturing kind of like almost like a flounder, like actually, what are those called? Those flatfishes, you know, the ones that lay like on the seafloor. But those, right?
Yeah,
except it has like a ton of eyes on it. That's what I was picturing, and like kind of moving around like a bunch of little legs under it. Anyway, so I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed that imagery, and how Spine ends up using it to get this extra terrifying eye in its skull.
Yeah, he is summoning his own familiar.
Yeah, the familiar to the familiar. So just like a couple of things. So at the end of the last chapter, I guess we'll call it. I think there was the implication that like Jack was gonna like manipulate Abby into like being on his side, and they were gonna do stuff. And so yeah, I was wondering if there was like what were you planning to put in the story about that just like didn't make it in, I guess.
Yeah, so the plan was mostly just for them to speak a lot more, because I kind of want to set up the implication that basically Jack has gone through the exact same thing that like Abby has, except he's found a way to kind of work within this company, I guess, to not become some sort of weapon, but rather a company's personal bounty hunter, right? And yeah, I just kind of wanted to add a little bit more between them really kind of set up the character of Abby, since she is going to be so important later on. And I don't know, I feel that I didn't really succeed with that in this one, but I did slightly set up that the connection between him and Abby is going to be a little bit more friendlier going forward, maybe. Then again, there's like a whole bunch of things I wanted to put in there that kind of lets that entire section of this story make a lot more sense, but it just didn't find its way to the story. But definitely on a second run, that would be something that would fill out even more so.
Sure, yeah. I also liked some. I mean, you always have this really fun way with metaphors and language. This is a very you kind of tone.
Yeah.
Except it's in a. I like this direction quite a bit. So you have all the stuff with the cigarette and then burning down past the filter.
Oh God.
And yes, that's. I mean, I don't even smoke, and that's gross to me.
He's been smoking cotton
until finally the sun comes in. I think I really do think the main great thing in here is the description with Spine. The smoke that slips out into the sun, but it has nothing to like grasp onto, so it like fades away. Is a really good image, and there's a lot of stuff you can do with that as well. Something about clinging to shadows and not being able to stand in the light and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of really, really interesting things in here.
I mean, overall, I think the thing that I'm really going to get from writing this, when it comes to Spine doing anything, I've realized that I first and foremost enjoy just describing this horrible looking creature, but it's also like friendly and methodical way on how Spine does things. And I know that I really, first and foremost, enjoyed writing that, and apparently it was slightly effective, so that's good. But I do know one thing that I do really need to work on is trying to find a even mix between giving us great bits about these characters along with that good imagery.
What are your plans for the next installment?
The plans for the next installment is I see it taking place half in this same motel, because then I get a lot more about like what Spine did and like exactly how that's going to affect the rest of this journey. And I think I want to add in a bit to where they kind of like mind meld and like use this new kind of sight that a Spine has to kind of see where the next step is, and like stuff like that. And also during that, I want to add in more about Jack's backstory and stuff like that. But of course that could all just like end up changing. So
yeah, of course. What I thought was interesting in here is so we learn more about Jack and Spine's kind of relationship a little bit, and I was surprised that like it almost feels like the way I expected it was that Jack and Spine are actually like, they're a little bit standoffish sometimes, but they're actually like good old buddies, right?
Yeah.
But the way that Jack like describes it, it's like so much less friendly than that. It's like they are like linked and they do work together, but like Jack doesn't necessarily like Spine.
Yes, that is true. And I feel that is like another breadcrumb to not only Jack's backstory, but also like how Spine was, I guess, quote unquote, created.
Right. So if you were to rewrite the story, what would you change?
If I were to rewrite it, I would spend a bit more in the beginning. I don't even know if I really need to add in how they got to Texarkana, right? I think that if I just start right, we're in the motel, give that motel a little bit more description so that we can all very, very much so see this place. And then of course, what I would spend the most time on is really working on the dialogue between Abby and Jack. I know there was also this whole dialogue tree where Abby realizes that she is wearing different clothes And then Jack has to not only explain how he got it, but also explain where he got women's clothes.
Okay.
Which would be more...
And also that he put them on her.
And also he...
I mean, I would feel a little awkward.
Yeah.
If that happened.
And yeah, I don't know. I would really want to work a lot more between their dynamic. Because they can't really be friends because Jack did kill her. And I would love to really like explore that more because I feel like that is a situation no one's found themselves in. Genuinely speaking, typically the person that kills us, we don't get to meet him.
Yeah. What do you think you learned writing this piece?
Writing this piece, I learned that I do enjoy this kind of world that I've been setting up slowly, but I kind of find some comfort in not knowing where it's going because through that I am allowed myself these sort of mistakes.
Sure.
I don't know. It is refreshing. What I learned is I love discovering a piece as I write it, and that through that I found that I can come up with really great ideas. So yeah, it was very fun, and I feel that I've gained a lot from doing the right thing this week.
Well, fantastic. And I hope you keep doing stuff in this world and stuff. And I'm excited to see what Jack inspired you next.
Exactly.
And what that little skittering thing is up to.
Yeah. But I feel that we've talked about me for quite some time. How are you doing, Matthias? What's up?
Mm-hmm. I'm doing good. But that's all the time we have. So that's the show.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
Yeah. So I wrote my story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called The Little Robin.
Ooh.
And I went for a storytelling feel. I'm gonna provide a small trigger warning, and if you don't want to get spoiled at all, when I say the trigger warning one more time, say la 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 to yourself for like 5 seconds, and then I'll say it, and then you won't hear it because it's like a very slight spoiler, or you can listen to it, and if you want to know what it is. So, trigger warning, claustrophobia.
Ooh.
So if you stop saying la la la, and yeah, so I can just get into the story. It's a little bit on the spookier side.
Well, I can't wait to hear it.
The Little Robin. You hear that? That bird song? It's a robin. I'm sure you know how important the robin is to the seasons. The first robin song of the year tells us that spring is coming. It was not always that way, however. It used to be that the robin sang year-round, singing its little heart out and bringing joy to all who heard. Let me tell you the story of why the robins don't sing in the winter anymore. Robin songs, pretty as they are not just sung for us. They're actually conversations back and forth to each other. And there's nothing robins like more than to ask questions. Listen to them now. Hello there. How's your morning going? It's going very well, thank you. And how do you do? I'm doing very well. Have you eaten any good seeds today? Polite talk. No one ever said that robins think too deeply. Robins don't dig too deep anymore. But there was once one little robin that did. An inquisitive little one. The little robin was the smallest of the robin family, and he loved to ask questions more than any other robin. He would spend all day asking questions about the world. Hello, Owl. Why do you have such big eyes? Big Bear. Why are you so sleepy? Little Rabbit. Why do you hide? One day, it was deep in the depths of winter, and the sun was hiding far to the north, and the forest was dark and cold and covered in quiet. And Little Robin was curious. Why was Mr. Sun so far away? He tried to ask, but Mr. Sun was too far away to hear his questions. So he decided to ask some of the others. Mr. Bear, he asked, why is the sun so far away? Mr. Bear did not want to answer questions like this. Mr. Bear is sleepy and grumpy in the winter. I am sleeping, Little Robin. Ask someone else. So Little Robin went to Wise Owl, who sees so much and speaks so little. Miss Owl, why is it so dark and cold in the winter? Little Robin, the owl said, you do not know what you ask. Some questions are best left unanswered. Little Robin frowned. But I want to know. Tell me, oh please tell me. Miss Owl shook her head. No, I will not tell you. It is not a secret for me to tell. But if you wish to find out, you will have to journey deep into the forest, to the great tree in the island in the lake. There is a deep hollow that goes deep, enough that if you listen closely, you can hear the earth speak. With her, you may ask any questions and have your answer. But hark! Miss Owl spread her wings wide, casting long moon shadows across the white forest floor. Keep your questions few, for the roots grow fast deep in the earth. Her patience is infinite, and yet... Little Robin was elated. Thank you, Miss Owl! And he was so excited that he took off before even thanking her, and before thinking at all on her advice. He did not ask Miss Owl where she got this information, or why he had to keep his questions few. Little Robin was going to get all his answers. What was the point in asking right now? Little Robin told his family where he was going, and he refused all advice to the contrary. And he took off. He flew far across the land, the skeletal trees mixing like a bed of pine needles below him. He asked many creatures for help, and though many were gruff, for they had heard of how many questions Little Robin asked, they had also heard his quest. This part of his journey is long, and filled with many little stories and friends along the way. He helped the hare beat the wolf, he chased the bugs out of the snow, and he escaped the great sleeping snake. But those are stories for another time. Eventually, the little Robin found the lake, and he could see the great tree on the island. At the edge of the lake, he said goodbye to the friends he met along the way, for the ice was thin, and only he could fly. And then he flew to the island. It was cold, much colder than now, and snow was shaking down from the sky. The island was small and completely overtaken by the roots of a great gray tree, as big around as a hill, tall as a mountain. The roots were so thick and overlaying each other, like a pile of great stone snakes, that you could not see the earth, for there were so many. And beyond the island, the snow fell like a curtain, so that all Little Robin could see was white air and gray roots and a big, thick trunk. Little Robin searched and searched and searched, but he could not find the hollow Miss Owl had spoken of. He searched until his wings were wet and his beak was frozen. But then, aha! Between two big roots was a hollow, just big enough for a robin to fit through. Little Robin went in. Inside, it was dark, even darker than a starless winter night. The walls were made of hard root and soft earth. Little Robin went down and down and down until his feet were tired of hopping. It was warm down here, which he was very grateful for after how cold he had gotten. Eventually, he got to what seemed like the bottom. It was hard to tell, being so dark. He spread out his wings and found that neither could touch the walls, but he didn't feel like he was going down anymore. He decided to wait and listen. It took a long time waiting in the dark before he heard it. A soft voice, whispering, or perhaps singing, vibrating from the grains of dirt between his feet. It was soft enough that his own little bird heart was almost too loud. Hello? Is this the earth? Little Robin asked. The earth whispered back. Yes, it said. This is she. A little robin has found me. It is so rare that your kind finds their way to here, in the dark. Yes, Little Robin replied, nervously. It sure was strange talking in the dark, not knowing where the voice was coming from. I have some questions for you. Of course, whispered the earth. But you must promise to never tell a soul what you hear. Little Robin was flabbergasted. He hadn't come all this way to not tell people what he heard. How else were people to know that he, Little Robin, knew things? But he decided to play along for now. He would decide to tell people or not after he heard his answers. Of course, he said, and he began to ask his questions. He asked why the sun was so far away, and the earth told him. He asked why the sky turned pink at the first rise of day, and the earth answered. He asked who had made the animals, and why the shapes had been chosen. He asked why it was dark at night, and why snow was so pretty if it hurt to touch for too long, and why animals died when they got old. And the earth answered. The earth answered every question. But then little Robin noticed how hard it was to hear the earth's answers. There was a noise. It had been quiet for a while now, but now that Robin had noticed it, it was unshakable. "What is that noise?" little Robin asked. But the earth's voice was so quiet he struggled to hear. "What did you say?" little Robin said, alone in the dark. She replied, but again, it was too soft to make out in the smothering darkness. Little Robin pressed his ear to the ground, and he whispered, "What did you say?" "The roots," the earth hissed back, before fading in the face of the scratching, groaning noises. Little Robin was alarmed, and he suddenly remembered Miss Owl's warning. He turned to leave, hopping back the way he came. At least, the way he thought he came. Though the path went up a little, it only ended in a wall of dense, cold roots. "Okay," little Robin thought. "I must have gotten turned around." And so he went back. He tried to ask the earth for directions, and though he thought he could imagine her voice, he couldn't make out what she was saying over the groaning noises. It was like boulders tumbling in the distance. He didn't like it. He started following the wall, hopping along, keeping one wing touching the side, keeping the other stretched out in the dark. He was getting scared. He hadn't asked the earth if there was anything else down here. And he kept hopping, and hopping, and hopping, and hopping. And the wall never seemed to end. There was only more dark, cold, gray roots. Gray roots. Little Robin realized he could see just the faint outlines of the worm-like walls. He looked around, searching for where the light was coming from. Up, far, far above, he could see it. A tiny pinprick of light. He tried to fly up to it, but he just knocked his wings against the walls. Both walls, he realized. The other wall had gotten closer. It seemed he was in a tunnel now. It was much closer. He tried to turn back, to get back to the space underground that had had more room, but the way back was blocked. And he bumped against cold, gray roots. He realized with a shudder that they were new. He could almost see them, growing slowly, the tips wriggling up and down, as if searching, splitting in two, and into fine hairs that thickened into gray worms, diving in and out of each other, growing, thickening, taking up more space. There wasn't much room now. There wasn't much room at all. He knew then that this had all been a trap. Whether by the tree, or the earth, or someone else, he didn't know. And the roots snaked thicker and closer around him, lapping on top of each other like ever-climbing waves. Little Robin stared at the pinprick in the ceiling, wishing he could go, wishing he could fly, wishing he could stretch out his arms, until the light, too, disappeared. How the story got out, no one is quite sure. Perhaps Miss Owl spoke to the earth once more to get the story, or perhaps one of Little Robin's friends was at the other end of that pinprick and heard his story before the light disappeared. Whatever the case, Little Robin was never able to tell anyone the answers to his questions. Robins don't ask questions like that anymore. Especially not when it is dark and Father Sun is not out to watch us. In the winter, in the dark, they are dead quiet. Listen, aren't their songs beautiful? Is spring coming? They may not tell you outright, but the answer is already in front of you, if you only pay attention. That's the story.
Well. Looks like we have a storyteller here. But no, that was a really, really great story. I absolutely love the voice that you used throughout. It perfectly fits your kind of like writing style, and also, I don't know, like the journey of this little Robin was just so captivating in a way that I didn't think I would ever care so much about Little Robin. So like really, really good job, Matthias.
Uh-huh. Okay, glad. Yeah, one thing that I'm wary of is how much the Robin is characterized. I already like have some things in mind for what I would do to characterize him more. But I mean, I think you get the broad strokes. He's an inquisitive little Robin. He asks a lot of questions and asks too many.
Yeah, and I feel like with this story, it feels like the kind of story that you don't really need a whole lot really to characterize this Robin. I mean, they solely being inquisitive, I think, is good enough for what he has to do for the story, you know, and it works very well.
Sure.
And I also really love how doesn't have a name. He is just the little Robin.
Yeah, he's not even the only Robin. He's just the little one.
He's the smallest one in the lot. But what kind of character choices were you thinking of adding?
Just to characterize more about what kind of inquisitive, like, does he actually care about the answers? Is he just like a kid that's asking why over and over? Like, why does he, like, there's a bit near the end where he's like, I'm not gonna keep any secrets, you know, because he wants to look smart, and like that's a different character choice. Like, if he just wants to know things just to look smart, that's different from he wants to know because he needs to know because he needs to know. You know, that was a fun sentence. So I think just little clarifications. It's not like it's like a muddied character. And it's okay to stick to archetypes. Like, I mean, this kind of story, like, the wise owl is just the warning mentor. Like, the bear was just there to just show he already went to at least one person before.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like I need to have three-dimensional... Like, if I had a fox character in here, the fox would just be a trickster. Like, it doesn't have to be really deep
because each like every other character has a function basically in this story,
right?
And within that function, I feel that the point of why they're there came across very, very easily. I mean, they are there because the Robin has these questions, and he's going to larger and larger creature to try and get it up until he talks to the Earth. But of course, that never goes too well.
Yeah. In the on like the theme, I think if I were to go back, I would pick what is the reason why the Robin gets stuck in there, gets subsumed by the roots. Like there's a lot of different like themes I could have there, and I don't think I settle quite on which one I want to choose. So like, is it just that like is the moral, because I can have a pretty with a story like this, I think it's pretty if not expected, it's pretty acceptable to have like a pretty much just stated moral, and you don't actually have to agree with it. Like, I don't actually agree with you shouldn't ask questions, but like that's definitely something
that is the moral
that you could
of this
come
story.
away with, right? Yeah, it's don't ask questions, or don't dig too deep, or listen to warnings can even be one, or just like be careful who you ask. Or I mean, there could be another thing of just like you should find out the answer yourself. There's a lot of these things that are in there, and I don't think I come down on which ones are the correct ones. And that's fun, but like I think it makes it a little unclear. So that's definitely something that I would like specifically choose before I go back.
Also, I feel that like one thing that might have the story have a little bit more focused, or because I mean there is a strong focus, but as the Robin continues on their journey, it seems like he's doing a lot of these same things without any like core point besides just gaining knowledge, which I feel like that's enough, yes, but if he had one central question that he continued to ask each person, and like each person could either dismiss him or come up with a answer, but it's not the answer that the Robin is looking for. I feel that could not only gain some sort of progression throughout the story, but also it can fill out a lot of these side characters and work even more so towards whatever message you're trying to create at the end.
That's a really, really good suggestion, and I can already imagine what that would look like. I think I was trying to go for that, but I just couldn't come up with like a really good question.
Well, yeah, because like this question has to be one that they can ask an owl and a bear and the earth.
Yes, yes. Yeah, like what it would. So what came a lot of inspiration for this is so Robin was one of the words, and I looked up what the meanings of Robins are, and the whole thing with them is that the first time you see one or you hear one, it's a sign that spring is coming.
Yes.
Like that's the start of spring. It's when you first see a robin. I don't actually know what they do in the winter. I think birds hibernate.
They
so
like
I
die, right?
I don't actually. Maybe. Jesus. Yeah. But anyway, so I was thinking of. I mean, the frame question is why. What happened before, and so this is supposed to be just a story of like why they're quiet in the winter.
Yeah.
And so I wanted it to be like they're hiding, they're scared of something. And so that's when the questions thing, like they only ask questions when the sun is out, when the light is out, and it's not scary and dark and a bad time. And so that's where I had the question of like, why does the sun go away in the winter? But yeah, that wasn't like super significant. But yeah, if I had a real question, I would definitely do that device, because I can definitely picture like him going to each one and like the bear having a stupid answer. It's just like, because it is, and another one, the owl having like a really pretentious answer, but that's not actually true. Until finally he goes to the earth and he gets the real answer, which I intentionally didn't have the earth like in quotations answer his questions. I wanted it to be so like you don't actually know what the earth is saying, because it's like the true truth. And he digs too deep. You're not supposed to know. So so I have a pretty decent idea of what I would go back and change. For what I learned, I learned that I really like the storytelling method, and I think I need to do it more often, because it's really enjoyable. It flows out really well. I know it's very telly, but that's like okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, that's the point of that style of writing, to take the audience on this journey, and just it is supposed to be telly, because it is storytelling. Like that's why it's so effective.
I think when I write my like quote unquote more serious pieces, I really want to do it in standard novel prose, I guess, like in the Sandersonian, in the Wild Bow, in the I don't know, just the fucking novels where it's like description and real sense and dialogue, and it feels reality, very clear prose. And I think I should practice more of telling a serious, like maybe longer story in this kind of storytelling method, storytelling prose, and seeing where I go from there. Because I don't know, I think when I stick in the clear prose, I think I lose a little bit of passion and flair, just because like I'm being as clear as possible. And this is my own thing. It's not like Sanderson lacks in immersion. Like you're in there. But I think for myself, I just need to try that out.
Yeah, this is a form of writing that, I mean, first and foremost, you're very good at it. And it flows very well, and it lends itself to fitting perfectly with a lot of your diction and typical flow. And I do believe that if you were to do something like this, but with a more serious piece, it will work out very well, because not only will the description of certain things be very vivid, but you'll also be able to hop into multiple characters' minds without losing the overall voice and flow.
Yeah, and I think it would be a middle ground between this very telly, Aesop kind of tale, to like having like scenes and stuff like that, but still told in a like keeping this kind of tone where it's like I don't actually know how to describe this, but it's like not necessarily in the moment real. It's a story being told, and it's okay being a story being told. Anyway, so that's what I have about my story. That's what I think I learned.
Right, cool.
And I'm looking forward to getting better at doing this sort of thing. So
exactly. Well, I think the next step right here is to move on to our listener submitted stories.
Hell yes. Okay, so we're going to be talking about 5 stories this week. When we talk about them, we're going to spoil them entirely. So please, after we say the names, go and read them, because so many of them are absolutely worth reading unspoiled.
Exactly.
And don't forget, if you didn't get chosen this week, every single time you write, your chance of getting selected goes up. So keep on writing, and consider it an encouragement. Okay, so we'll be reading stories by...
We'll be reading stories by Bisexual Punch Party, Lucasop 86, Ace of Sword, Medyora 22, and Generous Nat.
That's right. So go ahead and pause now if you haven't read those.
We will wait, don't worry. Are you back?
I mean, yes.
Alright. Come and talk with us. We will start with Bisexual Punch Party with Snatch, which is also a very good movie.
Okay, sure. I don't know anything about that.
No,
what?
Nothing. Just you need to watch Snatch, but conversation for another time.
It's on the. That's the noise you make when there's a technical difficulty.
Oh, that's just my general noise.
It's a general noise. Oh, okay. So we have this character who has fallen into this alternate dimension and is now a disciple / slave / servant of the sevenfold pleasure tiger, which is this goddess of this land. And so there's some cool world building where
some awesome world building.
This is a sort of place where, yeah, it's very cool, and I'm very interested in seeing more of it. This is kind of a small multiverse of like god domains that meld into each other, kind of dreamlike. And some of the people who fall in are sacrificed, and the gods like devour them, but some are chosen to serve. And so he's out in the jungle foraging and getting food for the tiger. And he's with some of the other servants, and they have to like they have to walk in a square, like all facing outwards, so that the tigers don't eat them, because the red tigers, I think they are, will only they won't eat you if you see them. And so there's just like this weird mix of like, I mean, the initial thought I had with that was like, oh, we're in the tiger's domain, right? So like this is her tigers, and she like lets them just go and eat her servants because that's like her thing. Anyway, so Mark, that's the main character, falls in a pit and has to wait for his companions to let him out by when they get a vine to get him out, when another goddess woman comes into the pit, and she's there's a cool description. She hopped into the pit next to him, rising with a body clad in muscle and little else. And she, she's a goddess, she's like kind of terrifying, because this is a world where people get eaten by them. And so he makes a pact with her, and he understands that she's like a warrior goddess. And he's like, fuck it, why not? Well, I don't particularly care about my goddess. Better they get eaten later on. And so it turns out that they merge together, and he feels stronger, but not like that much stronger. And it turns out that she's actually a crow goddess. She's the beak that snatches, no warrior goddess. She's a trickster goddess, and her dialogue is really fun. She fooled him, and he's like pissed off that he's a bird and not a warrior. And then she's like gloating, and then he's like, "You're an idiot. Why do you think I want to be a warrior god? I'm weak. I'm skinny and useless. They had me out here picking fruit. Now we're bound forever. You stupid bird." And there's a pause, and then the beak that snatches considers this and says, "What an incredible trickster goddess am I, to fool even myself." And I love that so much. It's delightful. It's wonderful. I love these characters so much already, and they've only been characterized in the latter half of the story. It's wonderful.
And yeah, I mean, honestly, this is just such a great world that is being built here. I love the voice, and of course the shining achievement is the dialogue and how these characters are so characterized right out of the gate. You know, and they're I don't know, they're horribly fun, and like I would love to see the remainder of whatever adventure happens.
Yeah, I really do wonder. Like, I really want to keep reading this, right? And I don't actually know specifically why. Like, what specifically about the setting and the characters? Those are the two things that draw me in. It's the setting and the characters. It's not just one or the other. But I'm not really sure which one's doing like the heavy lifting. Like, it's really hard for me to identify exactly why I like this so much.
I think it's because both parts are very strong, right? And I know the reason why I liked reading it so much is the possibility, and not only this world that they set up, but how the main character is going to traverse that world. So
sure,
yeah, I don't know. I think it's an even mix of all the good things that I know I enjoy, and I feel that's why if they do end up doing a second and a third entry, I'll be the first one reading it. So
yeah, absolutely. Bisexual Punch Party, thank you so much for writing this, and maybe consider revisiting at some point. At some point. Please do.
All right, up next is Ace of Swords with Stillwater.
So this is another interesting world, a little bit Pact-like. So we have this great scene setting with a gray sky and fine drizzle on a silent village. We have this character, the Huntress. Yeah, that's very you. And we can picture it pretty well. This kind of sad village that's under some pretty bad setting. And the main character's wearing this wide brim hat, and she passes this pen with this groaning sound in it. So it's like there's clearly like stuff is off here. But she goes to the village center, and she goes inside, and the villagers are there, and so there's this long dialogue as they figure this out. So basically, their guardian spirit, which is a robin, is beaten and torn and mutilated, basically in the middle of the room. And so they're talking about it and what hurt it and stuff like that. And so they come to we go through some of the world building that basically most spirits are made from. When someone dies, all their drives, vices, virtues, and wants disperse and go their separate ways, and they kind of coalesce into these living flesh and body spirits, right? And so something must have died in the lake, coalesced into a creature of bloodlust. And so we get a lot of world building as they have to figure out what exactly to do. They can't use animals because the fishing... clearly none of the fish are dead because the fishing is fine. It's just humans and I guess guardian spirits that are being attacked. And so someone here was filled with bloodlust and caused this creature, this monster, to be here. And so they settle on a plan of action. She needs bait, and then so she's going to use one of the villagers as bait, and then she's going to kill the monster. And so that's how we leave. In the comments, Ace of Sword talks about how they really dislike the concept of always chaotic evil species, but like get the notion for having orcs. It's stuff that the protagonist can quote mow down without regrets.
Yeah.
And so this was the motivation behind this was to make something that's actually straight up evil. Like killing a creature of bloodlust is good because it's literally just bloodlust, nothing else. Yeah. So I definitely get that sentiment.
Again, it's another example of really great world building, not only. And also, personally, recently I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls and a lot of Bloodborne. So this, just, I don't know, the world that's being set up and a lot of just what's going on reminds me so much of that it feels like the perfect thing that I just really wanted to read.
Yeah, I wasn't picturing the aesthetics of Bloodborne. I was actually picturing almost like an eastern, like rural area.
Yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't say necessarily the aesthetic of the world that's being built here reminds me of Bloodborne, but it's more so
Hunters.
It's the Hunters. It's this kind of air that I get that's floating in the air. Also, just saying a creature of bloodlust, that's definitely a thing in Bloodborne. So
yes, there's a lot of blood in Bloodborne.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed this, and especially like the scene setting. I would say that the exposition is delivered a little bit exposition-y. There's a moment in here, and I totally understand the reason why, but I think the actual quotation is, quote, you do know how spirits and monsters are created? Of course, everyone nodded. It was common knowledge, but not everyone realized the implications. And then we get the exposition of how they're created. And I think, that certainly works, but upon a revision, obviously, you'd probably want to make that sound more natural. Yeah. I mean, if everyone knows, at the very least, make it so not everyone knows. That's step one, because then it's like, why are they hearing this again, right?
Yeah.
But it's also spiced up a little bit because in the middle of that exposition, she talks about the thing in the pen that was gnawing and creating the noise, and that makes it so it's like, oh, it's not just for exposition's sake. It's also, hey, also you've got a glutton in the pen. You got to worry about that. So,
but overall, that was a fantastic story. Ace of Sword, and please continue to write for us, or more so, write for yourself. So the next story, let's talk about LucasOp 86. A questionable sales pitch.
So this is an interesting story. I'm going to summarize it quickly because kind of a lot happens in it, actually, and it's in two parts. So we have this character named Stokes. He's this kind of crazy wizard. He has these 3 specimens barely under control. We don't see exactly what they are, but they're his hybrids he's invented. And so then this girl shows up because he posted a flyer, and she pulled one of the pull-off tabs for a number and immediately got teleported through, and she's pretty pissed off about that. And so this is like he's hiring her, the very first person who did it, to be a warlock's assistant. And so it's very good timing because immediately there's this interview that they have to go to where he's going to present his hybrids and try to get someone to purchase his skills. And so they go in, and he starts to this little 7 board, this board of 7 highest ranking guild members. And he starts presenting the hybrids. The first one is a wasp octopus hybrid, and it gets through the bars and then slams through the window, and a scream is heard outside. So we're like, okay, that didn't really turn out well. The second one is the Slothful Essent, and it's a sloth, but imbued with the teen angst of 239 local adolescents. Yes. And there's what he wants to do with it is that he can turn on a telepathy charm and broadcast the most angsty sloth's thoughts to everyone around it. It's the most painful thing ever. But it's rejected because they're like, you want us to launch a sloth out of a catapult? Excuse me? And then the third one is a alpaca or a llama. Yeah, it's an alpaca that anything removed from the alpaca's body, it becomes acid. It doesn't become acidic. It becomes acid. And so alpacas spit. I think actually it's only llamas that spit, or maybe it's just that llamas spit even more, spit. And they're just known for that. All things spit. It spits on the bars, melts the bars, and goes on a rampage, of course. And poor Stokes is really dejected afterwards, but it's okay because the assistant girl, Riva, she asks about his other ideas, and we get kind of the notion maybe she's going to help him refine them and make them a little less crazy. So
yeah, I mean, overall, this is not only fantastic world building, as we always say, but I really love getting Riva and the Warlock and just their connection and the dialogue that is sparse throughout, and how it's this kind of like uncanny pairing that could actually end up being very good for each other. So
sure, yeah. I did feel that Riva was a little underdeveloped.
Yeah.
Especially towards the middle, she kind of gets lost a little bit. I mean, Stokes is such a strong personality. I almost wonder if like it would have been better to like to forgo characterizing her and to like have her as like already his assistant and just like her lackey or his lackey, and then later on, like if there was a chapter 2, that's when you characterize Riva a lot more. But it was presented in a way that like, oh, this is our protagonist part 2. This is our real main character, and we're just in Stokes's perspective. But like Riva, I mean, she's the one meeting the crazy wizard, right? So she's like the protagonist, like traditionally.
But I feel like for deeper characterization, as you said, I can see that coming in like a part 2, right? What I'm seeing though is that a lot of the building blocks are being set, and this main character this character of Stokes is not only set up to be a good wizard, but a really shitty one at the same time. I think that can thus create a really great a dynamic to where Riva is his assistant, but is probably like much more than just that. If the story, of course, is to continue.
The only other thing is that it kind of a lot happens, right? We have the pre-interview stuff, and then Riva shows up, and there's a whole interaction there, and then of course the entire interview, and so it's kind of a lot. Especially it feels. I think maybe having more time in one section might have made it a little bit more fulfilling and stuff like that. So, just a suggestion.
But either way, thank you very much. So, LucasOp86.
Yeah, I mean, I had a good time reading that story. It's a lot of fun. So, next story by
Generous Nat, which is Tryout.
So this is an interesting story. So it's Batman fanfiction, but it's really terrifying.
It is surprisingly grim.
Yes, but it's also like it's classic Adam West Batman and Robin.
The best version.
And I mean, I could hear the voices. Their voices were brilliant. I could hear Adam West saying these things, and so it starts off with "Holy potato punching, Batman! These spuds are getting out of hand," Robin said, and then Batman replies, "You're absolutely right, my alliterating chum. We need to get out of here. If only I had my trusty patat away spray, but they took my faithful utility belt when they lured us into this trap." And it's just like, especially like actually reading it, I can't do an Adam West impression, but it sounds so. It's Adam West. Adam West wrote these lines. So yeah, it's wonderful. Batman and Robin are surrounded by potato people, mutant potato people, and they're punching them.
Pow, krachow, crack.
It's really terrifying. After the fight starts, they get Robin, and it's really, really violent when he punches them. Like he's punching through rotting flesh and feeling brains and flesh squish under his boot. Batman searched for Robin, found him at the bottom of a pile of monsters. They screamed as they tore the costume and flesh from his young protege. Robin was long dead. Batman hadn't even heard his screams. And so Batman yells, "Alfred, another," and then he keeps fighting, and it's a comical splat kind of way. He says, "Another Alfred now," and then suddenly there's another Robin, and he's terrified. He's kind of crying, and then he's quipping like he's supposed to, but like there's clearly he falls to his knees and sobs. And then Batman grips Robin with a hand around his neck and tore off his mask, and then throws him down into the potato people. I will be honest, I did get a little confused in this latter half. Like, I don't... whatever is happening, it's horrifying. But I wasn't quite exactly sure what was the mechanism for obtaining these other Robins.
Well,
you know?
I think it's because homie's super rich. So he probably just, like, gets them how he got the other Robin by stealing them from their family.
Yeah, I was like, I just wasn't sure if they're just like up above. Alfred was just like throwing down little orphan boys. Yeah, no, so I was just a little confused. That was the main criticism there. But I mean, it was really enjoyable having this horrible mix of like hilarious, quippiness and being really campy, and also just horrifying. The boy is like terrified and sobbing and doesn't want to die.
Yeah, I know, like, as I was reading this, I could not stop laughing. Like, it is the perfect parody of the, like, old Adam West cartoon. And there's also this, like, wonderful spin twist. You fully see how demented this version of, like, Batman is. And if this could somehow find its way to being a actual comic book, I would absolutely love that.
So yeah, this was, I mean, sure was interesting. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, I've said all I need to say about this. I enjoyed it. The latter half was a little confusing. And then, it's weird. Maybe go read it.
Please read it.
It's worth it.
All right, so next up is Meteora 22, and it is Untitled.
Yeah, so this is a little bit quick to summarize because we're dealing with mostly emotions here rather than specific plot. Yep. A lot of it is dialogue as these kids and this mom are talking to the grandpa as he's making the choice to die, it seems like.
Yeah.
And so we don't really know exactly why. Yeah, they're basically all saying their goodbyes, and he's like giving his like last advice and thank yous and everything, and it's really dramatic. And I get a sense for each of the characters. The kids are just the kids, but the mom and the grandpa and her father have this nice little interaction, and she says that he's a superhero, and he really likes that. That's his last thought, basically. So yeah, so it's really heavy. I
don't know. Like, I know personally, I've always thought about what my like last moments will be, right? I don't know, I just love the way on how the story is kind of dealt with, right? Like, there isn't any overarching history about this grandfather. It's stuck to this one moment, this one room, and everything is just everything has a chance to breathe so well, to where, like, I didn't know anything about this grandpa, but I felt so much for not only him but the family that he's leaving behind.
Yeah, he seemed he's a real good dude.
He's a superhero,
and yeah, absolutely. The things that I would say is that I was really wondering why he needs to die right now. Like, I didn't necessarily need to know, oh, it's, you know, pancreatic cancer or whatever, but I was just wondering, like, is he in pain? Is he just like done being alive? What exactly was the what's his, is he about to experience like a degenerative like mental thing? Yeah, so I was wondering what was the real motivation for the situation happening, basically. Yeah. And I wonder if it might have been better served by only having one kid, so you only have to describe that one kid's interactions. Because they're basically the same character in this, but and then you could have like a specific like emotional connection, you know, over, you know, why specifically they're missing their grandpa so much, so, and how they're taking this. Exactly.
But I mean, overall, it's a really well written story, and I would definitely recommend people to go and read this.
Yeah, I don't. What else did I get into? But I really like the relationship between the mom and her father, and I thought this was really really poignant. So maybe go there, read it, and let Meteora know if you were emotionally affected.
Exactly. So since we're at the end of talking about the listeners submitted stories, we're gonna go ahead and say thank you to everyone that did submit a story.
That's right. So thank you so much to Sarah Penguin.
Thank you, Stuck in Reddit Factory.
Thank you, Ace of Sword.
Thank you, LucasOp86.
Thank you, Paradox.
Thank you, Captain Rhino.
Thank you, Shin7.
Thank you, No Goodbye.
Thank you, Generous Nat.
Thank you, Bisexual Punch Party.
Thank you, Dravonio.
Thank you, Meteora 22.
I'd also like to give a personal shout out to everyone who left a comment, even if it was on your own story. I mean, just doing that is you're reflecting on your own story, and it creates a better jumping off point for everyone else to talk about it. Mm-hmm. So shout out to Mizey1, Stuck in Reddit Factory, Generous Nat, Ace of Sword, LucasOp86, and Captain Rhino. Especially for you guys who didn't even you guys didn't write this week, but you did leave comments. That's super super cool. That's being exclusively selfless. So and I absolutely encourage everyone to leave a comment. If you want to be like all these wonderful people that left comments or read a story of your own, you can go to /r/do-the-right-thing on Reddit. All you have to do is set a timer for 30 minutes and then write a short story using 3 of the random words that we're going to mention at the end of this podcast. Although this next week is going to be pretty special.
Yeah. Well, also,
we'll talk about that in a sec.
If you are wondering exactly how can I see these words as soon as possible so I can have the most time to thus produce my magnum opus, well, you just gotta go to our Twitter, which is @RightThingCast. You can go there. We post every Friday about what the new words are going to be, along with just anything else that we might think you want to be concerned about or in the know about. So please go there, check it out.
Yeah, and if you want to send us a question or send in your story because you can't on Reddit, you can send us an email at rightthingcast@gmail.com. Believe it or not, we do actually read the messages, and yes, Pizza Hot Dog Lover, I again apologize. You sent an email about a month ago and I still haven't actually replied, but I did acknowledge you on the podcast, so I did do that part. I've just been slammed, but that's absolutely something that we're trying to get better about. But yeah, especially if you just have like a question or something and want a quick interaction, that's a great way to do it. But the even better way to interact with us is to be on the Patreon Discord, and by donating $1 a month or whatever else you can afford. But before I get into the Patreon pitch, I want to talk about what we're going to be doing next week.
Ooh, next week's a special week.
Next week is a very special week. So for episode 48. We're going to be doing a special Do the Pact thing. Yes. Our partners, our Doof partners over at Deep in Pact, they are wrapping up their analysis, chapter by chapter analysis of Pact, finishing up with a 24-hour charity live stream for a youth homelessness charity. And it's called All Packed Up. For those who don't know anything about Pact, Pact is the second work by Wildbow. You can find it online at pactwebserial.wordpress.com or just search Pact Wildbow, and it's brilliant. So I highly recommend you read it. It's a urban fantasy with a really likable main character who deals with this really kind of dark kind of magic, and it's a very fun kind of magic. It kind of works a little bit how English, like as a subject, does. It's very much based on interpretation and using rules and twisting them around in patterns and stuff like that. So it's really entertaining. And so what we've decided to do is as part of the live stream, we're gonna come on where our time slot is starting at 12:30 a.m.
Yes,
that's at night. On Central Standard Time in America. And we're going to meet with Ruben and Elliot, and we're going to do a special Do the Pact Thing episode where we're all going to write Pact fan fiction, actually. So please consider tuning in. You can find out more. What do we call those posts? The story submission post. We have a link to all of the information about that. And you can check out the rest of the schedule. There's some awesome stuff going on in there. Even if you haven't read Pact, we're going to be keeping our specific fan fiction pretty spoiler free. Obviously, we're probably going to talk about magic and stuff, but we're not going to spoil any plot points. Although the rest of that live stream might, for sure.
I mean, everyone besides me, of course, because I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't really keep anything about Pact under wraps.
That's right. Jarvis is going to inadvertently he's just actually going to write Pact really quick. He's going to write Pact in fanfiction format. Jarvis hasn't read Pact, so it's going to be really fun to see his perspective.
Yeah, I mean, all I know, right? I know two things. That the very last line of it is, I realized that my greatest enemy were the friends that I met along the way. I know that's the very last line. Yeah, that is
totally... That's the last line of Pact.
And also, I think the main character is homeless.
So this next episode is... fair warning, it's going to be really long. It's going to be a really long episode. At least 3 hours. We'll see.
I mean, what? Because we're doing 4 stories?
We're doing 4 stories, which we've never done before.
Yeah.
But we'll try to speed through it, I guess. Maybe we'll do less analysis and more just commentary on the fan fiction we wrote. But yeah, so as part of that, we asked you guys to consider maybe writing some Pact fan fiction of your own, because why not? If you do that, please, in your story at the very beginning, say this is
spoiler text.
Pact fanfiction, and tell us, if you're doing minor or major spoilers. Like if you've read and finished Pact and you want to actually use the characters and stuff like that, then please, but be pretty spoiler aware. I'm about to finish Pact. I'm 4 chapters from the end, so I'll finish it before we do that, which is very exciting.
Oh, nice.
And if you haven't read Pact, consider starting it. It's a really good book, and it's online for free. So yeah. So actually, I'm gonna go a little bit out of order, and I'm gonna say how we're gonna be using the prompt. So we're doing a fun thing. The words are pact, practice, other, and a roll of the dice. So you can choose to just use those first 3, pact, practice, and other. Or in the story submission post, I set up a table with each of the arc titles for Pact. And you can click a link to roll a 16-sided die and get an extra random word, one of Pact's arc titles. So just to read them out real quick, the Pact arc titles are bonds, damages, breach, collateral, conviction, subordination, void, signature, null, malafide, which means bad faith, malfeasance, which means a more complicated concept, duress, execution, sign die, which I don't remember what that means, possession, and judgment. What you guys can do is go to that post, roll the die, and see what word you get, and I think that'll be a really fun way to inspire you. In retrospect, after thinking about it, if you are writing Pact fanfiction, using Pact, practice, and other is probably like way too easy, and it's probably not going to inspire you very much. So I think rolling the dice is probably a really good way to actually get some inspiration in there. But if you're not writing Pact fanfiction, if you're writing a normal Do the Right Thing submission, I think Pact, practice, and other are probably pretty good words. So
yeah, so please write, submit, and be here with us next week to talk all about Pact and all of its magic.
All of its magic. Okay, so we're gonna real quick plug a doof thing, and then we'll do our little story thing, and you guys can start writing your stories. I'm gonna plug Deep in Pact because why not? We're also gonna plug it next week. So Deep in Pact is a chapter by chapter analysis of Pact, of course. If you haven't read Pact, please do. You might you're not gonna be able to listen to it all by the time All Packed Up starts, but it's super bingeable. You can read a bunch and then listen to entire 30 minutes per chapter analysis. It's very, very enjoyable. So I'm really excited to see the conclusion of that. If you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com Doof Media or something. I don't remember how. You know how to search Patreon Doof Media. Like, that's not hard. We have some really cool rewards, and we are just about to reach our next reward tier, which is that Elliot from Deep Impact and Media MD is going to start doing a video series analyzing game design. So that's really exciting. And we also have another stretch goal, which you guys might want to check out. 375 patrons. That's pretty cool. I'd recommend you guys just give it a look-see. So and once we reach this next goal, we'll actually start talking about it. But yeah, that's all we have for you this week. Jarvis, what story are you gonna write? Actually, roll the dice right now. Let's roll the dice. So what are the things we're gonna get?
I rolled possession.
Okay, I rolled 1, so I rolled bonds.
Ooh.
Okay. Oh, you rolled 15, so we're at the opposite ends. That's interesting. Okay, so your words are pact, practice, other, and possession, and mine are pact, practice, other, and bonds. Well, actually, I think I should go first because I know something about pact and you don't. So I think the contrast might be fun. I don't know.
All right, go.
That's so. I have just started to practice my craft of the practice, and I went deep into the woods with my brother because we actually have like a deep a deep bond. We have some bonds with each other, and we went deep in the woods to find an other, to seal a deep pact so we could have familiars, and with our deep bonds. But we were turned against each other, and we had and I killed him.
All right. So my story next week is going to be that in order to truly join the Coven of the North Star, one must dedicate to the practice of giving up worldly possessions. Then you must go out in search of another, one who is imbued with the natural gifts of the world and can thus give some to you. After this, you shall make a pact with them. This pact shall be set in stone and written in blood. And thus you can go along on the rest of your journey, knowing that you yourself are homeless.
Did you use the word possession?
Yes, I used them all.
Okay, well that's okay. Well, I hope everyone has been inspired with this long episode to listen to our very long episode. Next week, when we and hopefully you
do the right thing,
do the pact thing. Do the pact thing.
Do the pact thing.
We're rebranding. We're rebranding. Let's do the pact thing.
Do the pact